I decided to see how many Zelda games I could reasonably play through emulators using this dual-core 1.6 GHz Intel Pentium-powered machine. I picked the starting point of the Windwaker for GameCube, emulated using Dolphin emulator, and decided I would move up or down in terms of Zelda generations depending on its performance. Luckily, Dolphin has instructions on their website for installing on Ubuntu, but essentially you just need to add their repository to your package manager and then run apt install Dolphin emu in your terminal interface. After that, I was able to get it booted up and running the Windwaker. The main menu didn't run terribly, but it was pretty laggy for a menu screen, which I figured did not bode well for the rest of the game. As expected, the game ran pretty slowly and maxed out at around 15 frames per second. The cutscenes took ages to get through and the gameplay was not really any different. I was surprised that it actually wasn't completely unplayable and that there was actually not much input delay. I think with a bit of tweaking and perhaps a much needed upgrade to the version of Dolphin, this could possibly become a playable game. But for now, I consider it a no. I figured that since the GameCube is too much for this thing to handle, it made sense to test a downgrade, in terms of emulation difficulty, to Phantom Hourglass for the DS. The only reliable DS emulator for Linux I've found is... I honestly don't know how to pronounce this thing, but you can see it there on screen. Luckily, it's found in a lot of common repositories, so all you really need to do is install it with apt-get install. I guess I should have figured that this would be too much for it, because the game ran possibly even worse than the Windwaker. The cutscenes were unbearable and the game was barely playable. Now, in the short I originally made, I was not able to get Ocarina of Time or Majora's Mask to run smoothly, so I just left it out of the video entirely. But I was actually able to get it to run super smoothly at almost constant 50 to 60 frames per second when I used the command line only version of Mupen64Plus, which meant fewer resources were being spent on the graphical interface of the emulator and more on the game itself. I was shocked when I got it running. Aside from a few glitches and frame skips here and there, this game was perfectly playable and I actually got myself pretty lost in the story before remembering I was just filming this for a video. I had to test Majora's Mask as well because I've actually found that that game is a lot more difficult to run sometimes, and it did run noticeably worse than Ocarina of Time with constant graphics glitches and more frequent frame skips. However, just for fooling around and passing some time on a long trip, I actually thought this was reasonably playable. Now, obviously this thing was able to run Nintendo 64 3D Zelda games, so it should have no problem running a retro top-down Zelda game for Game Boy and below. But I already recorded the footage of that for the original short I made, so I figured I'd throw it in here at the end of this video. I was able to run A Link to the Past on Higen emulator, which is another emulator commonly found in Linux repositories. I actually think Ocarina of Time ran better than A Link to the Past, so I would say that of the 17 main Zelda games, I'm able to run about 10 of them for the N64, Game Boy Advance, the Game Boy Color, SNES, and the NES.